Mic check. Check, check. Hello. 1, 2. Check, check, check. Check 1, check 2, check 3.
Okay, so we do have a quorum. We can begin the meeting with a roll call, please. My microphone is just not close enough. Okay, I'll get close. We do have a quorum. If I could get a roll call, please.
We lost our video feed. Councilmember Mendoza?
Here.
Councilmember Meyer?
Here.
Councilmember Rary?
Here.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez?
Here.
Mayor Bryant?
Here. Okay. There is nothing to report out from closed session. So at this time, if we could join together and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think we might have lost our video feed. I'm not sure if it's back up and going.
Mayor, we may have lost the video feed, so if you could just maybe give us a few minutes to just confirm that.
Okay. We will hold on until we confirm the video
Okay,
feed.
we're good.
Okay, we're good.
We're good.
At this time, we will open public comments. Turn it to you, Margaret.
At this time, the public is permitted to address the City Council on items that are not on the agenda, items listed under Informational Reports or the consent calendar, and requests for future agenda items, new request. Please save your comments for any other item for that part of the agenda, and you'll have the opportunity to provide them. I received no written public comments for public comments. If you wish to speak under public comment, please raise your hand using the Zoom feature, and I'll call upon your name if provided and unmute you to speak. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per person, and your microphone will be muted after the timer has expired. While we encourage your comments, state law prevents the City Council from discussing items that are not on their meeting agenda, and if appropriate, staff will follow up on them. And I see that I have 2 hands raised. I will start with Jody Podesta. Jody, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I have a request of the Brentwood City Council to consider passing 3 special ordinances. In the last few years, it seems as though there has been a significant rise in crime related to mail theft, shoplifting, and catalytic converter theft. The first ordinance that should be passed is in reference to mail and package theft. With the holiday season approaching, there are even more opportunities for mail and package thieves. We've all seen the home security videos of a thief walking up to someone's home and just walking away with a package as though he or she is entitled to it. The current penalty or fine does not seem to deter them. Along those same lines, an ordinance against shoplifting would help protect our local businesses and keep large groups of shoplifters out of our city. The third ordinance that should be passed is in reference to catalytic converter theft. This particular crime has risen across the country at great expense and inconvenience to vehicle owners. My request is that you pass these ordinances with fines and penalties so high that the citizens of Brentwood are no longer targets of these selfish and senseless crimes. Make it known that our city is not the place to shoplift or steal mail and packages or catalytic converters. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Linda. And I'm sorry, Linda, I don't want to slaughter your last name. Go ahead. Linda?
There we go. Sorry about that. Yes, thank you. This is Linda DeChambeau. Honorable Mayor and City Council members, I'm an environmental scientist and an educator. I worked at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for 21 years, former Mayor of Moraga and Executive Director of Contra Costa County Climate Leaders. We were founded back in 2007 for the cities of Contra Costa County to share best practices on policies to address the climate crisis. As a former elected official myself, we wanted an opportunity to really look at who was passing good policy. And I want to thank the city of Brentwood for a wonderful general plan update. So in regards to climate change, the update that City of Brentwood passed back in 2014 has some model language. And it looks like, you know, you'd be really progressive and aggressive in addressing climate policy on climate change. However, I don't see, and I'm not sure how, even as an elected official myself, how does one ensure the City of Brentwood complies with what's written in the general plan? So I just wanted to bring your attention to that, and I'd love an update on the implementing plan, the IP elements. There was just some really great language in there that was passed back in 2014, that you would do a baseline greenhouse gas emission, that you would do a climate action plan, that you would have a community-wide operations and a city's operation implementation, that you would implement and monitor those programs. So I don't see, even here in 2021, which is 7 years later, that Brentwood has begun the process of implementing the 2014 plan. So I've talked with staff there, I believe Eric, over a year ago, and again 6 months ago. And I would love to know, all I'm told is there's still no definitive start date for the creation of a climate action plan. And yet the general plan was passed in 2014 with the next one coming up in 3 years. So I hope to get back to you. I just want to enter those comments into the minutes tonight. And again, I do, it's odd because I do want to thank you. It's actually a really well-written general plan. So I just hope that you will comply with your own general plan update and look forward to continuing the conversation. Thanks for all you do to improve our community for future generations.
I see no additional hands raised.
Okay, at this time then, we will close public comments and enter into presentations. And I have a few presentations tonight. The first one is a proclamation of National Senior Center Month. And I will call for Chris Farrow after I read the proclamation. Whereas older Americans are significant members of our society, investing their wisdom and experience to help enrich and better the lives of younger generations, and whereas the Brentwood Senior Activity Center has acted as a catalyst for mobilizing the creativity, energy, vitality, and commitment of the older residents of Brentwood and East Contra Costa County, and whereas through the wide array of services, programs, and activities, Senior Center empower older citizens to contribute to their own health and well-being of their fellow citizens of all ages. And whereas during the pandemic, Brentwood Senior Activity Center has been a community partner in ensuring that our most vulnerable citizens, people age 65 and older, many with underlying medical conditions, are cared for and able to stay safe and healthy. And whereas the Senior Activity Center in Brentwood affirms the dignity, self-worth, and independence of older persons by facilitating their decisions and actions, tapping their experiences, skills, and knowledge, and enabling their continued contributions to the community, therefore be it resolved that I, Joel Bryant, Mayor of the City of Brentwood, proclaim September 2021 as National Senior Center Month, dated this 14th day of September 2021, and that is Mayor Joel Bryant and the City Council. And I will turn it now to Chris Farrow to receive this proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor Bryant and City Council, for recognizing Senior Center Month and thus the importance of providing a safe place for older adults to create, socialize, learn, and volunteer. As you know, senior centers are community hubs and leverage resources from a variety of sources. Here in Brentwood, we are so fortunate to have so many strong partners that make the Senior Center happen. So I'd really like to thank a few of those important partners, including the Brentwood Senior Citizens Club, Contra Costa County Health Services, Meals on Wheels Diablo Region, Food Bank of Contra Costa and Solano Counties, Tri-Delta Transit, Liberty Adult Education, California Department on Aging, East County Senior Coalition, California Park and Rec Society, and AARP, just to name a few. So I'd also like to acknowledge Recreation Division staff, Olivia Alvarez and Amanda Cheney, who alongside our limited service staff and volunteers bring so many valuable resources to our senior community every day with passion and unwavering commitment. So thank you for this recognition.
Thank you and staff for everything that you do in partnership with our seniors in our community. The next item, A2, is a proclamation acknowledging and recognizing National Hispanic Heritage Month, which is September 15th to October 15th, and I'll read the proclamation, and then I will ask Vice Mayor Rodriguez and Councilmember Mendoza to receive this on behalf of the community. Whereas Brentwood draws strength from its extraordinary diversity of people, and its character is enhanced by citizens who maintain and honor cultural customs brought from other lands, and whereas Hispanic people were among the earliest settlers in California, in Contra Costa County and other regions of the United States, and over the years have come to this country in search of democracy, freedom, and a better way of life. Their diverse and vibrant culture includes elements originating in Europe, North America, Central America, South America, and the Caribbean. And whereas Hispanics have had profound and positive impacts on our community and shaped our character with cultural customs and influences, and whereas Hispanic sons and daughters have served our country with distinction, helping to preserve the democracy and freedom all Americans enjoy, and since World War I, Hispanics have been awarded the Medal of Honor more than any other ethnic group, and whereas in 1988, the President of the United States authorized and requested an annual proclamation designating a 31-day period beginning September 15th and ending October 15th as National Hispanic Heritage Month, now therefore it be proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Brentwood does hereby recognize September 15th through October 15th, 2021 as Hispanic Heritage Month, and calls upon the residents of Brentwood to observe the month with reverence and gratitude, dated this 14th day of September, 2021. And I will ask Vice Mayor Rodriguez and Councilmember Mendoza, I'm sorry, you're usually over here on my screen, if you would receive this on behalf of the community, and if you have something to say.
Yes, I'd just like to say thank you to the council, to city staff for recognizing the Hispanic but also the Latino community within the city of Brentwood. It's a great honor to be able to speak on their behalf. I know that we have a large population of Latinos here in this community, so it's a great opportunity for us to be able to recognize them for all that they've done, not only at a national level, but also within our own community in itself. So once again, myself as a vice mayor, but also want to recognize the council and staff for recognizing that portion of our community. Thank you very much.
I also want to echo the thank you to staff for bringing this proclamation forward. It means a lot to me. I don't know if people know, but I am an American-Mexican citizen. I am both with both countries, so very proud American citizen, but also a very proud Mexican citizen as well. And I appreciate that our proclamation does acknowledge the vast kaleidoscope of what being Latino means. We go all the way from Mexico, all the way down to Chile, Argentina, and the Caribbean, and that's important also because sometimes we forget about Afro-Latinos, and I think it's important to remember them as well. And I also think that it's important that we celebrate all of the Latinos in Brentwood, whether you've been here for as long as Brentwood has been around or you've only been here for 5 minutes. We thank you for being here. We respect you for being here, and it means a lot to me that we did this. So thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Just as a resident, I also want to thank our Hispanic community and our Latino community. I am constantly having guests coming into town specifically to celebrate a significantly popular portion of this Hispanic community, and that is our wonderful restaurants. And many of them just this week have commented to me they have traveled around the country and they haven't found any better than in Brentwood. So that's a source of great pride for all of us as well, that our own families are so successful in business here as well. We'll move into item A3, the proclamation for the Soroptimist International of the Delta Day. Whereas the Soroptimist organization, founded on October 3rd, 1921, works to economically empower women and girls through access to education, and whereas the Soroptimist International of the Delta was formed in 1984, and whereas the Soroptimist International of the Delta has been an integral part of Brentwood's community for the past 37 years, and whereas the Soroptimist International of the Delta has improved the lives of Brentwood's women and girls by supporting women and girls with our Live Your Dream, Violet Richardson Legacy, and 8th Grade Outstanding Citizen Awards, supporting other nonprofits in their fundraising efforts, HOW, Network of Care, and Brentwood Chamber of Commerce, supporting Shepherd's Gate, One Day at a Time, Brentwood Regional Community Chest, and Village Community Resource Center. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Brentwood does hereby recognize October 3rd, 2021 as Soroptimist International of the Delta Day, and encourages extending congratulations to Soroptimist for its 100th anniversary and celebrating the Brentwood Club for their many contributions to our community, dated this 14th day of September, 2021. And at this time, I will call on Jan Schultz to receive this on behalf of the Soroptimist. Jan?
Mayor Bryan, thank you so much for this proclamation. We're really proud to be part of an organization that's been, working for women and girls throughout the world for 100 years. And as we've been working since 1984, we feel really honored to be a part of this community, the support that we've had and continue to receive as we continue to do fundraising and working within our community. We really appreciate this, and I'm happy to accept the proclamation on behalf of Soroptimist International of the Delta.
Thank you so much, and thank you for everything you do for the women and young women and girls of our community in encouraging them to continue to be the great leaders that they have been and will be. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Before we go further into the agenda for tonight, if we could just take a moment. I know that there's been a lot of acknowledgement and national celebration and recognition of the lives, the bravery, and sacrifice of those who gave their lives and lived afterwards to carry the burden of the loss of the lives of the activities on 9/11. If we could join together and take a moment of silence in recognition of the great sacrifice and privilege that we have such wonderful people to help us through these hours. Right now, if we could just take a moment of recognition and silence. Thank you. So at this time, we will move into informational reports from council members. And I will, for the first time, be able to say, I'll go to my left and start. No, we don't have to do it. We'll do something new today. We'll mix it up and ask Council Member Meyer.
Throw the newbie into the water. Okay, I am ready. All right, so since our last meeting, I attended the California Alliance of Local Electeds meeting, which is local electeds across the state working towards policy change and advocacy formed around initially housing, but it's gone beyond that. The special city council meeting for a zoning code workshop. I went to the Creekside Disc Golf ribbon cutting ceremony. Fantastic move on the part of the community members who advocated for that. I did attend the 13 Fallen procession and the ceremony at the Brentwood Police Department following that. We didn't do a 9/11, so I did go to the Delta Veterans Group 20th anniversary of 9/11 in Antioch. Beautiful service. I went to the Hija del Campo community event to celebrate their 1-year anniversary with a resource fair and a drag show. It was fantastic. Heritage High School students Project Climate Club to discuss climate in general and oil and gas in the city. Let's see, watched part of the redistricting committee, the first meeting. Was thrilled to be able to see that in action. I think that's going to be a fantastic and very transparent and community-driven process. It's wonderful. And then also the open house for the Brentwood Boulevard and downtown specific plan updates meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since the last time we met, I attended the Measure X Advisory Committee Board at its October 25th meeting. And at that meeting, East County Fire Services was ranked evenly with mental health as the top priorities. But last week, it dropped to the third priority, ranking under mental health and then child care with mental health combined into that. And the interesting thing is, instead of keeping all fire requests together and all mental health, and the Measure X committee has broken up all the different funding requests for each and every one of those categories and made priorities out of them. So while East County Fire Services is actually ranked at third, if you look at the reopening of stations, that ranked at 9 in priority. Wildfire mitigation, fuel reduction ranked 16. Seasonal staffing to help with these fires that we're having during the summer was ranked at 28. And regional paramedic and helicopter ranked at 41. And then there was some additional fire that was ranked even lower than that. So I'm not sure why they broke up all the things, but there is a meeting this week, the 17th. I'm sorry, I forgot to look to see what time it was at. But the Measure X Advisory Committee will be meeting this week and possibly September 22nd. So you want to put that on your calendar. I attended the Zoning Code Update Workshop. I met individually with 3 panelists for the League of Women Voters Wildfire Library Program, which I will be moderating virtually this Thursday, beginning at 4 p.m. You can go to the library's website or Facebook page and find that there, or the League of Women Voters, and maybe we can get the city to also post it up and get that information out so that people know what resources are available to them in case of a wildfire in our area. I also attended a wonderful, heartfelt 13 flag event honoring the 13 troops killed in Afghanistan last month, and the parade was very, it went from Veterans Park all the way to the police station and then back again. But the heat was just tremendous that day. But there was just lines and lines of people walking and cars, and even in this heat from the asphalt coming out, and then stood there for the presentation that was given at the police station, and then made their way back. And I didn't hear anybody complaining there at all. Everybody was there so much just to honor those troops who have fallen. It was a really great ceremony. I had a meeting with our city attorney, the Brentwood Boulevard and Downtown Specific Plan Town Hall, the PAL board meeting, and mark your calendars for November 12th and for the PAL Tamale Fest. Tickets will go fast, so you'll want to make sure that you've got that in there. And we've set a date, April 25th of next year, for the golf tournament benefiting PAL. So you'll also want to, if you're a golfer or if you want to donate, that's another way of doing it. Today I attended the Cal Cities Prop 68 Roundtable, where I learned about grants for our parks. And in researching those grants, found other grants for urban greening, so that like Brentwood Boulevard, we could get possibly a grant to help put trees and native plants and so forth down Brentwood Boulevard through grants. And it just, if you go down the check mark, I mean, Brentwood Boulevard kind of knocks off every single criteria that they want for that. In addition, recreational trails, both motorized and non-motorized, there's also grants for those, and I forwarded all that information to staff, and that is all I have to report.
Thank you.
Hello. Since the last time we met, I also met with the youth group, the climate group from Heritage High School, had a couple of meetings with them. They're very excited in getting involved in Brentwood and working on climate issues, so it was great to hear that public speaker earlier today. There's a lot of people working on that. We are actually also doing a field trip we're going to do with them around the city to look at opportunities around the city on climate change. Attended the Senate session on the 30th where they voted on SB 9, which passed. But the fight is not over. We're working on an initiative. Actually had a meeting today with the Attorney General's office and the analysts there. So we're still working on steps to hopefully control our own zoning in our city. Met Cal City's speaker, Mayor Cheryl Villegas Walker, met with her, was on that Zoom, sorry. Zoning update workshop, redistricting first meeting, which was exciting. The Brentwood Boulevard and Downtown Brentwood Specific Plan workshop, meeting with finance. Did attend also the 1-year anniversary of Hijas del Campo, where they did a vaccine clinic with Contra Costa County and La Clínica de la Raza. And yeah, the drag show was awesome. I hope that we do more of those. A call with the Village Community Resource Center. They were looking of ways to get the Latino population more involved, and just talked about my experience about how I became involved, starting to read agendas, coming to meetings, watching, understanding what the 3 minutes of that you get to speak. So we're going to work on trying to get more people actually in the chamber to speak up on what they want. Attended the Cali meeting, as Councilwoman Meyer did. A Stanford professor came out and spoke about the power of cities versus Sacramento and how they really don't think we have power. So we're going to work on that. Listen to the Planning Commission meeting, and that's it for the last couple weeks. Thank you.
Yeah, so since the last time we met, I didn't participate. There wasn't any type of committee meetings that I'm involved in that had meetings, but I did participate in the town hall meeting regarding the Brentwood Boulevard in downtown. I also participate in the zoning code workshop, which I thought both of those were very good workshops, really good participation. I also had a personal meeting regarding staff with Tim Davis, and that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Since the last time we met, I met with the Chabad of the Bay Area and was part of the event that they held in the community center for Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. Also, I attended Mayor's Conference, the zoning code workshop, several meetings with community members and business owners in the community, also meetings regarding city personnel. I had a meeting attended a meeting regarding the event of the Honoring the Fallen 13, as well as I also listened to this last week's Planning Commission, and I attended 2 funerals, families in the community who have lost families due to COVID, in just an effort to support the loss of our family members and our community members. And I don't have anything further to report since our last meeting. So at this time, we'll move into consent calendars. And do I have a motion for this consent calendar?
Make a motion to approve items C1 through C7.
I'll second that.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Same sign.
Mr. Mayor, excuse me, the city clerk needs to read the title of the ordinance, if she could, please. Thank you.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Brentwood amending Chapter 2.50 of the Brentwood Municipal Code pertaining to attendance and removal from office, youth commissioners.
Do we have to retake the vote, or? Okay, so I need a first and a second.
I'll make a motion to, or wait, we already have the first and second.
I'm sorry.
We just need to call the vote.
Let's call the vote again. I'm sorry. Again, trying to catch up to speed here.
You want our hands, right?
Yes. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, now we'll move into item D, public hearings. Item D1, a resolution approving the final engineer's report and confirming the annexation of territory, annexation number 5, to existing landscape and lighting assessment district number 19-3. And Aaron Wanden will provide the staff report. Aaron?
A little lonely out here. 10 on 1 here. Be gentle. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. In accordance with the Landscape and Lighting Act of 1972 and Proposition 218, this item is the final step in the approval process to annex territory to Landscape and Lighting Assessment District number 19-3 as annexation number 5. If annexation number 5 is approved, an annual assessment can be levied on parcels corresponding to the new Amber Lane apartment project, the Rotten Robbie project located north of Lone Tree Way and south of Fairview Road, and the Zip Through Car Wash project located north of Lone Tree Way and west of Empire. These assessments will fund the cost to operate and maintain streetlights, landscaping, parks, trails, and open space areas that benefit these properties. This district includes multiple benefit zones to streamline the annexation of future non-residential and multifamily developments. Due to the varying degrees of operation, maintenance, and benefit boundaries for each improvement type throughout the district, 16 specific benefit zones have been created. Each benefit zone has a maximum assessment rate that can be increased each subsequent fiscal year by the annual change in the Consumer Price Index. The total maximum revenue that can be generated from the parcels that comprise annexation number 5 is $90,614 in fiscal year 2021-22. The annexation of territory to the existing district does require property owner voter approval before City Council can finalize the annexation. Notices and ballots were mailed to the affected property owners as required by Proposition 218. The ballots can be opened and tabulated by the city clerk after the close of the public input portion of the public hearing this evening. If the affected property owners are in favor of the annexation to this district, City Council would then be able to adopt the attached resolution, which would give your approval of the final engineer's report and confirm annexation number 5 to Landscape and Lighting Assessment District 19-3. Myself, in person, and our city consultants available on Zoom are available for any questions you might have. Thank you.
Are there any questions, clarifying questions of staff at this time? Yes, Councilmember Meyer.
I would just like to ask for clarification for the sake of the community. What happens with, for example, Amber Lane Apartments, there aren't any residents. So when you talk about sending out ballots for residents' approval, can you explain how that process works, please?
It's, and maybe our consultant can chime in if I misstate this, but the vote is based on one parcel because there's no separate parcels as of now. So as of now, it's one property owner, not multiple property owners.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay. So at this time, since there are no more informational questions of staff, we will, the public hearing is now open. Margaret?
I received 0 written public comments on this item. If you wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand using the Zoom feature, and I'll call upon your name if provided and unmute you to speak. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per person, and your microphone will be muted after the timer has expired. And I'm currently seeing no hands raised.
Okay, then we will close that public comment. The election in this matter is hereby called. Are there any additional ballots to be submitted? No additional ballots to be submitted. If there are no other speakers or ballots to be submitted, I need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, if there's any further conversation or questions of staff or comments on the agenda, we can go into that now. If there are none, do I have a motion for this item?
Make a motion to confirm the annexation number 5 with a simple majority property owner approval weighted by assessment amount.
We have a first.
Second.
Second.
First and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, I'd like to ask the city clerk to tabulate the ballots and read the results.
The 3 ballots were received with a 100% affirmative vote.
Okay, thank you. At this time, do I have a motion on this item?
Make a motion as detailed in the staff report, adopt a resolution ordering the annexation of territory to landscape and lighting assessment district number 19-3 and taking other necessary actions to implement the annexation.
We have a first
I'll second that.
and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. We will move on to item D2, a resolution approving the final engineer's report and making certain findings, ordering improvements, confirming and ordering the formation of landscape and lighting assessment district number 21-3, Bennett Estates, and taking related actions. And it's Aaron again.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members once again. In accordance with the Landscape and Lighting Act of 1972 and Proposition 218, this item is the final step in the approval process to form Landscape and Lighting Assessment District 21-3, Bennett Estates. If this district is formed, an annual assessment can be levied on the 14 single-family residential parcels associated with this project to fund the cost to operate and maintain city streetlights, landscaping, parks, trails, and open space areas that benefit these parcels. The proposed maximum assessment rate is $1,158.77 per single-family parcel, and therefore the estimated maximum revenue that can be generated is $16,222.80. These figures are in fiscal year 2021-22 dollars. This maximum assessment rate can be increased up each subsequent fiscal year by the annual change in the Consumer Price Index, or 2%, whichever is greater. The formation of this new district does require property owner approval before City Council can form the district. The notice and ballot was mailed to the affected property owner as required by Proposition 218. The ballot can be tabulated by the city clerk after the close of the public input portion of the public hearing this evening. If the property owner is favorable, City Council would then be able to adopt the attached resolution, which would give your approval of the final engineer's report and confirm the formation of Landscape and Lighting Assessment District 21-3, Bennett Estates. Once again, myself and the city's consultants are available for any questions you might have. Thank you.
Are there any questions of staff regarding this item? Okay, seeing none, the public hearing is now open. Margaret?
I received no written public comments on this item. If you wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand using the Zoom feature. I'll call upon your name if provided and unmute you to speak. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per person, and your microphone will be muted after the timer has expired. And I am seeing no hands raised.
Okay, and at this time we'll close public comment. The election in this matter is hereby called. Are there any additional ballots to be submitted?
No.
No submitted additional ballots. If there are no other speakers or ballots to be submitted, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
A first and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Are there any additional questions or comments regarding the agenda item? And if not, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, confirm the formation with a simple majority property owner approval weighted by assessment amount.
We have a first.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay. Margaret, could you tabulate the ballots and read the results?
The ballot was received with a 100% affirmative vote.
Okay, there's no further comments? conversation or questions of staff. Do I have a motion regarding this item?
We'll make a motion as detailed in the staff report, adopt a resolution ordering the formation of landscape and lighting assessment district number 21-3 and taking related actions.
First and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it is unanimous. We will move into item E1, continued from August 24th, 2021, to declare the results of the property owner protest ballot proceedings conducted for landscape and lighting assessment district number 21-1, Deer Ridge Landscape Improvements. And I'll turn this to Aaron Wanda now for the staff report.
And Aaron, if you could speak up louder in the mic, please. Thanks.
Sorry, this one-man show, I'm not much of an entertainer, so I wish I could entertain you better. Okay, bear with me. Good evening, once again, Mayor and City Council members. In accordance with Landscape and Lighting Act of 1972 and Proposition 218, this item is the final step in the approval process to form Landscape Lighting Assessment District number 21-1, the Deer Ridge Landscape Improvements. If this district is formed, an annual assessment can be levied on the parcels that benefit to fund the cost to construct and provide ongoing maintenance for new landscape improvements located at the 14 sites identified within the Deer Ridge development as shown in the engineer's report. The proposed maximum assessment rate is $89.82 per single-family parcel. The maximum assessment rate is comprised of two components, a construction component and a maintenance component. The construction component provides funding for the construction of the new landscape improvements. The construction component of the assessment will be assessed to property within LLAD number 21-1, Deer Ridge Landscape Improvements, over a period of 10 years in equal annual installments with no interest, commencing on fiscal year 2022-23 and ending after fiscal year 2031-32. The annual assessment for the construction component is $66.78 per single-family home. The maintenance component provides funding for the ongoing operation, maintenance, servicing, and replacement of the new landscape improvements. The maintenance component will commence in fiscal year 2022-23 and increase each subsequent fiscal year by no more than the prior year's change in the annual consumer price index, CPI, to keep up with the increases in costs for goods and services. The annual assessment for the maintenance component in fiscal year 2022-23 is $23.04 per single-family home. The formation of this new district does require property owner approval before City Council can form the district. The notice and ballot was mailed on July 8, 2021 to the affected property owners as required by Proposition 218. City staff held a virtual community education meeting on Thursday, July 15, 2021 to allow property owners the opportunity to ask questions regarding the proposed assessment prior to casting their ballots. Following the virtual community education meeting, a frequently asked questions page regarding the formation of LLAD number 21-1 Deer Ridge Landscape Improvements was posted on the city's website. On August 24th, 2021, City Council held the required public hearing relating to the formation of LLAD number 21-1 Deer Ridge Landscape Improvements, accepted ballots from property owners until the conclusion of the public testimony portion of the public hearing, and declared the balloting period closed at the conclusion of the public testimony portions of the public hearing. On August 25th, 2021, the LLAD number 21-1 Deer Ridge Landscape Improvements ballot tabulation was conducted at 11 a.m. in City Council chambers. Tonight, the results of the ballot tabulations that occurred on August 25th, 2021 are to be formally presented to City Council. After the City Clerk's declaration of the results of the property owner protest ballot proceedings, the City Council would then be able to adopt the attached resolution, which would give your approval of the final engineer's report and confirm the formation of Landscape and Lighting Assessment District number 21-1, Deer Ridge Landscape Improvements. Myself and the city's consultant, once again, are available for any questions you might have. Yes, that was a mouthful.
Are there any questions, clarifying questions for staff of council?
I'd like to ask one question. So I know you probably have mentioned it, I know I see it here, but just to make it very clear, after 10 years, what would be the drop of what each resident would have to pay? And then what would that, just so I know it's going to start off at a certain amount and it'll drop off after 10 years, just to make it clear if any residents are listening, what that looks like.
Right, so it will vary every year depending on the CPI index, but it will start at that $89 total. 66 and change will be for the construction component. The maintenance component starts at $23 and change. After that 10 years, it'll be based on that $23 and a 3% CPI if that happens for 10 years straight. But basically, it starts at 23 and then potentially
About 31.
Not for everyone.
No, I said about 31.
So yes, it's small increments if the CPI goes up after that 10 years.
So they would get reduced $60-some after the 10 years.
That definitely comes off
Okay.
after 10 years.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Meyer.
Thank you for that. We appreciate the report. The first question, well, actually the only question, what happens next? And part of the same question, how does that get communicated to the residents?
Absolutely good questions. Yes, staff will continue working with the current ownership groups at WBA on the, the northwest side of Foothill, northeast side, sorry, and then the golf course, Deer Ridge Golf Course still owns that southeast side. So regardless, staff will continue working with the property owners for the agreement to transfer that property. Again, it's just the two parcels up front into city ownership. And in the meantime, continue to work with the engineering firm to develop the bid documents, which will include complete plan sets and whatnot that need to go out for a formal bid process, which we're anticipating in October to get it out on the streets as a formal bid for the construction component. So we'll continue to post on our website as this continues to move forward as we have been on the city's website for the Deer Ridge project.
Thank you. So, of course, I've seen that page, and it's really great for anyone listening who wants to look at the documents and planning so far. How will it look if you've got, can you do some sort of a monthly update or however, if there's something significant that happens, a decision that's made or a calendared item or whatever, how does that look on that page? It's not a blog. I mean, how do you update if it's not a document or something? How do you make sure that gets communicated, what the updates are?
I'm not sure I'm clear on that.
So I'm asking, say, for example, you come up with a date for some significant action taken in the community, something about the landscaping or whatever. How does that get communicated if it's not specifically a document or a link? If it's just a paragraph long, by the way, here, this is what's happening this month, how would that look on the website, or can it be added in some way?
We can certainly continue to add that to the website, yes. The next real bit of information will be once the bid documents are put together in the next month, and then in October, once we know a date it will go out as a formal bid, we'll definitely advertise in numerous areas to get that date out there for individuals. After that, we'll certainly update that page when we have any major milestones or any pertinent information that needs to be presented.
Okay, thank you.
Any further clarifying questions of staff? Okay, seeing none, I know that seeing that this is a continuation of a closed public hearing, public testimony was already received on August 24th, and we don't necessarily have to have additional public comment, but I would like to make it available at this time. I know I'm throwing this curve in for our city clerk, but if there are anyone in the public that would like to comment on this, if you could help me with that, Martha.
If you wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand using the Zoom feature, and I'll call upon your name if provided and unmute you to speak. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per person, and your microphone will be muted after the timer has expired. And I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Okay, thank you. At this time, then, we will close public comment. Are there any more questions or comments from council on this item? Councilmember Ray.
I'd like to make a few comments. The golf course closed in October of 2019. I immediately started, actually at that time, I believe it was Assistant City Manager Terrence Grindal, because our city manager was on vacation. So I started working with him to try to see what would it take to include this in lighting and landscape district for the people to assess themselves. I met with residents who had already been reaching out to me, and we discussed this, and it seemed like it was something that the residents wanted to do. So I proceeded to move forward on there, worked with staff, and then finally brought it forth on the agenda, or asked the rest of the council to support this. And the rest of the council unanimously supported this, which was wonderful. I know the Deer Ridge residents really appreciate it. Staff has done a lot of work in creating this. Deer Ridge residents have been very patient while we've gone through this. And it's, I know it's hard to believe that it takes 2 years to get this done, but that's unfortunately how things move. And as a Park and Rec Commissioner, I had seen that even a little 1 acre park can take 3 years to design and build. So it does take some time, and I just, I want to thank the Deer Ridge residents for being so patient, staff for putting up with me, and so with that, if I could make a motion, unless somebody else would like to.
Are there any other comments before we receive a motion? Seeing none, Councilmember Rowe.
So I'd like to make a motion to confirm the formation with a simple majority property owner approval weighted by assessment and amount.
Okay, we have a first.
Second.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. If I could ask the city clerk to declare the results of the property owner protest ballot proceedings conducted on August 25th, 2021 in City Council chambers.
The LLAD number 21 was approved 72.15% to 27.85%.
Thank you. If there's no further questions or comments, do I have a motion on this item?
I'd like to make a motion, as detailed in the staff report, adopt a resolution ordering the formation of landscape and lighting assessment district number 21-1 and taking related actions and get moving on that landscaping.
We have a first.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. I can almost hear the roar of approval and excitement from Deer Ridge all the way downtown. Moving on to item E2, informational update on the Nail property. And shockingly, this is Bruce Mulder. There he is. We finally get to be in the same room and see your smiling mask. Thank you, Bruce.
All right. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Margaret has, I think, can share her screen, a PowerPoint that she's going to work with me on. So back in April of this year, Mayor Bryant requested an update on the status of the Nail property. Included in the staff report are a list of reports with previous actions regarding the property and that date back to 2007. So I'll provide a brief kind of high-level information report on the history of the Nail property. So back in the spring of 2007, the city approved the purchase of the Nail property from Mary Lynn Nail and Lorraine Vischer. This purchase came from a recommendation from the Council Agricultural Enterprise Committee that looked at the property for a potential agricultural park and history center that could be enjoyed by both Brentwood residents and the surrounding agricultural areas including the unincorporated areas of Brentwood, including Knightson, Byron, and other local areas. The property is outside the city limits, but the property is directly adjacent to the East Contra Costa Historical Society, so it created a great opportunity for partnerships and to support the Brentwood's heritage and support its agricultural background. So after it was purchased, the Parks and Recreation Commission worked with the community, the Historical Society, and a consultant to plan and design for the park. After a series of public meetings, the conceptual design was approved by the City Council in 2008. The design included community gardens. Margaret, you can move to the next slide. Right here, thank you. The design included community gardens, a row crop display area, a greenhouse, event buildings, a barn and exhibit space with kitchen facilities, a farm animal area, and a farm equipment display area. The general vision for the park was to partner with local nonprofits to form agreements to operate and maintain the site and phase it in with amenities over time.
Bruce, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I know that
Sure.
our city clerk is wearing many hats this evening. It is 8 o'clock, and I know that there is something that she has to do right now. So if it would be appropriate, and since she's running the slideshow, can you run it without her, or should we take a 5-minute recess?
Assistant City Manager Grindal was able to lock the ballot box for me.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Disregard. Please continue. Thank you.
All right. So let's see where I was here. So after it was purchased, the Park and Recreation worked with the community, this historical society, and a consultant to plan and design for the park. And I reviewed those areas of the park design. So since this original concept was put in place, the Nail property has received some interest, but has not received significant momentum or priority compared to other city projects over time. In review of the background, some of the key dates include in 2010, the city approved a use agreement with the Historical Society so they could use the property to store equipment, including a historic fire truck. And a current agreement is in place to January 2025. In 2012, the Green Living Coalition expressed interest in the property for community gardens. It appears that this did not come together as the city did not have sufficient resources to contribute towards the project. Also in 2012, the Ag Enterprise Committee considered potential users and concluded that the original 2008 conceptual design was not able to be implemented, and at that point was determined to no longer be relevant. The committee recommended potential lease options for council consideration. Then in 2012, the City Council reviewed these options and gave direction to move forward with an RFP for potential lease partners and directed staff to hold an informational meeting with potential stakeholders. This is where the documented activities drop off. It does not appear that any formal RFP process was drafted or that any public informational meeting ever took place. Finally, it should be noted that in 2019, in the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Master Plan update, it does include the Nail property in its list of future opportunity sites. The property does remain owned by the city and is available for future consideration. It continues to provide a potential as both a historical and agricultural park, along with possible opportunities for economic development and supporting ag opportunities and tourism. So that is a brief summary of the Nail property, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Are there any clarifying questions of staff?
Bruce, I did have a clarifying question regarding, I had sent a question off to you when this was on our agenda a couple months ago, I guess it was, and regarding that this area is eligible for Quimby funds. Did you find out what the results were?
We did some initial research on that, and we couldn't find any verification that the county had actually collected any Quimby Act fees for this project. And talking to Eric Nilthenius, our planning manager, he explained with the Quimby Act, those fees are tied to residential development projects, so it would have to be a residential development project to be able to get fees for that. I also did find some documentation from a letter in March of 2007 where Supervisor Mary FIFO had responded to a request from the city regarding financial components towards this project from the county. And the letter states that she was not confident that the county at that time was able to financially support the project. She did support the project concept very much, but there was no commitment to financial funds based on that documentation in that letter.
And why was it that after spending the amount of money to design this park that it was just decided that that was no longer sufficient? I guess I get frustrated because we do feasibility studies, we come back, we replan something, we redraw out things, and now here again, the funding was put in for to draw these plans, and then it was tossed aside.
Yeah, it's a great question. That goes back to 2012 is when some of this planning was done, between 2008 and 2012. It's my understanding that the vision was for a partner to come forward and to provide additional resources, and that the city did not have the funds to actually develop and operate this nail property, but they were looking for a concept that we could bring partners together, and that just has not come together.
Well, it specifically says in the staff report that aside from the money from Pulte Homes intended for site improvements related to infrastructure, the city has no money available for either development or operations of the agricultural park. Money for development and operations will have to come from non-city sources for the city to consider any proposal. So yeah, I guess I would have to agree with what you had just said, based on the staff reports itself, that the city had never intended on doing anything on this property.
I think the intent was to work and hope for partners to come forward that the city could work with, but that just has not come together.
Well, I mean, financially, the city had never planned on financially doing anything on this site.
That's my understanding, that the city, it was not the intent of the city to come forward with the capital to develop the park.
Okay. So I have a quick question. If it just seems like we've been sitting on this land for a long time and no one's getting any benefit, has the consideration of selling it ever come up to someone who does want to do agriculture of some sort?
As far as I know, it may have come up in some conversations, but I don't think that there's been anything officially that's come before the city council to provide direction on what to do with this nail property moving forward. It is still city property. It's there. I think that's probably why the mayor brought this forward, to just give an update on where we are with this nail property. If we were to do something with this, it would, I think, go in the bucket with several other priorities that the city has that compete for funding. So it might be one of those things that if the council is interested in doing something, that it be brought forward under the context of other city priorities, because it would compete for funding with other things.
Has it ever been a top priority when you do the strategic plan?
This particular item in the history of the strategic planning the last few years has not come up.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, Bruce. I know the city, it sounded like had no intentions to really fund it, but we had intentions to bring groups together to hopefully figure out how people can support this project or this development. Did the city do its due diligence in trying to host meetings and bringing possibly funding opportunities to this project, or did we just let it, or we didn't do that?
I know there was activity back in 2010, 2012 through the council committees, but since 2012, I don't see a whole lot of activity moving forward on this project.
So we have over almost 9 to 10 years, the city really hasn't done anything to try to encourage possible funding opportunities then, right?
Yeah, no, I don't think there's been a whole lot of activity on this project in the last 10 years.
I mean, because there's been a lot of growth, right? And there's also a lot of local farmers that over the years have done fairly well where, I mean, I don't know if the city's in a position, but maybe at some point us hosting something to support this kind of a project with some of the local people / outside funders possibly. But I just feel like it's really hard to, well, you know, we haven't done nothing for 10 years and there's no money, let's move on, if we really haven't done our due diligence to try to possibly find that funding for this type of a program. Especially when you're talking about the historical and ag piece of Brentwood, because I'll be honest with you, that's what everybody talks about, right? They love being in Brentwood because it's a small town, it has ag, and there's a lot of history. Well, if this building is supposed to represent that, I don't see us as a city how we don't at least try to find some opportunity to get this funded. You know, maybe it's not city funding, but there may be other opportunities out there. Because like I said, that's all I ever hear. The people moved out here because there's a lot of great history and ag, and it's a small town kind of a feeling, right? Well, I think this place would bring the historical pieces of things that people that move here recently or planning to move here that don't know, which would be great, not only for our residents as adults, but I think it's a great partnership that in the future they could collaborate with our schools, right? Our elementary, middle schools, and our high schools, so that kids could go on field trips out there and be able to experience what old Brentwood used to look like.
Mary Pifo, of course, was a supervisor a while ago, and I'm wondering, do you have staff that regularly tracks county grants? I know Councilmember Rary mentioned Quimby, but other agricultural or Parks and Rec or other grants that are ongoing through the county, are there people watching those things? And could that process be started over again, potentially looking at what new grants are coming up that might support some kind of growth here?
Yeah, we're always looking for opportunities for partnerships and grants. And so if there were some opportunities, we would love to explore an opportunity to, you know, if there were funding sources or partnerships, we absolutely would like to entertain those ideas and bring those areas forward.
So the hope then would be potentially still to partner with a nonprofit, maybe get some grants from the county or the state, but not necessarily invest any money as a city. But we would have to restart the entire process, wouldn't we, as far as looking at the scope and the condition and usage and zoning and all that sort of thing? We have to start from scratch?
I don't know that we'd have to start from scratch, but we would have to dust this off and refresh this project and bring it forward as a higher priority than it has been. It's one of those things that could be brought forward in the strategic planning process, and we take a look at it in the context of all the other priorities that we have as well. But that's not to say that if a partner came forward or a grant or some other opportunity came forward that would allow us to do something there to develop part of it and enable us to, you know, find a partner, we would certainly like to do that.
So for it to get to the point where it was ready for that kind of consideration, do you have any idea of an estimate of what that might cost?
At this point, no. This being an informational report,
yeah.
It's simply bringing the history forward.
Got it.
And honestly, we have not done, there has not been much activity in the last 10 years on this project.
Okay, thank you.
Has the Historical Society, because they're the subject matter experts on history, right, like a museum, have they ever expressed any interest in buying the property and managing that as part of, because they already own the house that's there, and this is just adjacent to the house. Have they showed any interest in taking that over and owning this project?
I don't believe they've shown a lot of interest, and that's probably because they just don't have the resources to do it. I think if they had resources, they would come forward, but I'm not aware and I don't want to speak for them, but
Okay.
I'm not aware that they've approached us recently over the last few years and wanted to do something with it.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. So there's no water that comes to it, and even it's 600 feet to the nearest water source. Is that what I?
I do understand that there is utilities that would need to be improved for the site.
Okay, so, and even if there's a water, even if we got ECCID, which would be the water source in that area, that's still not drinkable water. That's still not, I mean, so running faucets in bathrooms and so forth would not be something that we'd be able to do if we did create this thing?
Yeah, we'd have to look at that closer, but it's my understanding that that was the utilities piece of this was real challenging to move this forward, and that there is some things that need to be done with that.
And we have to do all of this through the county's community development department because this is outside of the city limits, so we have no control over what they place on us out there.
That's probably right. Mickey, I don't know if you can.
Well, I've sat through the ag, the rezoning for ag out in our area to allow for bed and breakfast and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that the farmers continually said is that, you know, there's so many things that need to place, we need to do improvements to the roadways in order to do, you know, any type of building. So if we had an event center out there, we'd have to, you know, widen the shoulders of the roadways and having lights that go up and down the driveways through it. I remember Hannah Nicole Vineyards, when they opened up, that was one of the things that at the last second, even though it was on the plan, they said, oh, sorry, you can't have your occupational whatever permit to get in there because we decided now you need to have lights going up your driveway. So they had to have their grand opening outside and couldn't bring anybody inside to it. So, but those were the concerns and the costs that accumulate through the community development department because each department is not talking to each other, which they're working on. I mean, that was part of that whole thing is that they want to try to work better together through the departments to make it easier. So hopefully that is in place, but without water or electricity, it makes it a little difficult to provide for any type of project out there. And we're not able to give them our water. Well, we could, but it costs us a lot of money to pipe it down. And we still have to go through the county to get approval for that.
Yes, I think it's definitely a fair statement that because this is outside the city limits and on county property, that there are additional challenges with the infrastructure and the planning and the development of that.
If there are no more clarifying questions of staff, we will open public comments.
I received no written public comments on this item. If you wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand using the Zoom feature. I will call your name if provided and unmute you to speak. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per person, and your microphone will be muted after the timer has expired. I do currently see one hand raised, Marisol Valles. I'll go ahead and unmute her. Marisol, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to raise my hand. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no additional hands raised.
At this time, we will close public comment, enter into discussion. I did want to just give a little bit of clarification. First of all, everything that has been said from council members and staff is absolutely accurate. This is a very challenging piece of property. This was one of the first pieces of property that when I was on the agriculture committee years ago, was brought forward. There was some community groups that were interested. They did not have any financing, and so that's what made me aware of it. A few months ago, I was approached by representatives from the Historical Society with questions regarding this, which is why I wanted to bring it to this council to make our council and community aware of what the situation was. And, you know, clearly there are several options that could be looked into. Council member Mendoza asked the question about selling it, whatever we do with it, disposal of it. And so that's something, I know that there have been many more priorities over the years that have caused this to not even be on the strategic plan process, and justifiably so for the reasons that were spoken. But I just wanted the council to be aware that this property was here. I know that some of our new council members may not have been aware that this was a situation. And again, like Councilmember Rary said, Supervisor Burgess has been working with the Board of Supervisors and the county to make strides to help the agricultural core that on the other side of Sellers, that is zoned agricultural core. There can be nothing that isn't agriculturally related there at this point, and they're trying to come up with definitions as to what agricultural enterprise means in working in partnership with the farmers and ranchers and people in the ag core. But I do appreciate you bringing this information forward, and if we do have other interests coming, this might be something that we can talk about at a later time. But since there is no council action required here, we will move forward with item E3. To receive a report on the Brentwood Leadership Roundtable and suggest possible membership expansion. And I will turn this to Tim Ogden now to present on the item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Based on some community concerns and council questions about the Brentwood Leadership Roundtable and some discussion on a previous council agenda, I opted to bring forth a little bit more of the historical context for the roundtable, including describing what its mission statement has been, some of the discussions that have been held, some of the partners who've participated. We did receive a public comment from an organization that hadn't yet agreed to participate, and they are now willing to participate, so they'll be added to the list. But wanted to provide this context too, and it's laid out in the staff report. So if there are any questions, I'd be glad to answer those, as well as if you have any recommendations or suggestions for additional partners that you think would be great collaborative partners in the roundtable's focus. We'd be glad to reach out to them and invite them to participate.
One of the things that I would like is, just like you have a council person on all committees, and I think we talked about this before, I would feel more comfortable if you had one representative from council. I know you and I talked, and you said only one person showed up last time. If only one person's showing up, people must not be seeing the value. So let's figure out what's going on. You know, I think there's other people who are willing to do other committees too. I don't know how everyone else feels about that. Because it does say in your agenda that you're working on policy, and if you're working on policy or policy suggestions, I think someone from council should be attending. I don't know how everyone else feels about that.
Can I just ask, in regards to that, is that what that group is for? Or was the language wrong, or should it be changed?
So I've done this
the goal
concept.
and the mission?
I've done this concept to other communities, and the policy is maybe a little misleading. It's really a gathering opportunity to get feedback from the community, some of these stakeholders, get different ideas on hot topics, really a forum for me to also share city updates, things that are going on. Occasionally, there have been things in other communities where it rose to a sense of a policy, and it was something I could take back to the city council, they could take back to their boards, and do something community-wide beneficial. We've only had really one topic that's risen to the top, and that was a collaboration to say, hey, as leaders in the community, we think the vaccinations is important. Let's make a joint statement. So as far as policy, that's probably the only real policy thing that's come up so far. But certainly policy is generally city council purview or commission's purview. So we're not actually enforcing anything. It's just idea garnering, brainstorming kind of a group. There has been some discussions about economic development efforts or fire became a topic early on in the discussion. We only had 6 or 7 meetings in the whole year, but fire was an early topic about what is the city doing, what can other stakeholders and partners do to help lobby on behalf of the fire issues. Obviously, that's now moving forward in a different direction. So that's been the nature of most of the discussions.
I have a few questions. We mentioned in the past that we thought social service-based nonprofit would be a really good addition to this group. I think your Spanish-speaking community would be well represented in this group as well. I feel like the community members are not necessarily here. There was also talk at some point about a community leader, someone who represents groups in the community. I think all of those are really important things to do, and I think if I looked at the mission that was in the agenda, it says provide a forum of dedicated and committed Brentwood business, nonprofit, and faith-based leaders to engage in frequent conversations and collaborations on improving Brentwood from various perspectives and to educate their respective bodies to influence policy and effectuate positive change. Great mission, but the fact that improving the city and influencing policy is mentioned in here, to me means that there would be I don't know if it's accountability or reporting on a regular basis, and we haven't had that. I know that there's been discussion about potentially now reporting back on it, but this feels like if it's driven towards improving the community, potentially affecting policy, I feel like it should be handled a little bit more formally, potentially minutes, potentially opening it up for, say, a dedicated email address that community members can write into and say, hey, can you talk about this topic? That kind of thing. I don't feel it should be redundant to council, but I do feel like council could be a liaison. There could be that position there. I'd be happy to do that for that matter. The faith-based participation we talked about, I know you had mentioned reaching out to some other faiths within the city. I'd like to see that continue, that outreach, because I feel like we do have so much diversity in our faiths within the city that we really need to make sure that all of those groups are represented as well. To me, it doesn't feel like this needs to be a limit of numbers of participants. It feels like whomever can be added, that would be a good part of the conversation to make real positive change within the city would be of benefit. I don't know that there needs to be a limit on a cap on that. And I think that's my questions and comments for now. So as far as adding it, I don't know how you would do that, for example, for the nonprofit representation. If you're looking at social service, we have quite a few, of course, that serve the city itself, but presumably you'd be able to come up with some sort of a way to reach out to one that could represent the community as a whole, the people that are most in need within the city who don't typically have a voice, who really should be represented in a group like this.
Sure. Yeah, and if you have some specific suggestions, we'd be glad to take it back to the roundtable and have them consider adding them to the group.
But I'll talk about that. I've got some contacts that I'll talk about during our comment period.
Great.
I think that word is actually a little bit troubling to me. Like, you will consider it, and it's interesting. Like, if the council is asking you to do something, I would hope that you'd say, okay, we will do that. And I don't understand. I feel like there's been a constant pushback on this leadership, what you want as your group versus what the council might want. So tonight, I think two of us already mentioned we would like a council person to be in that group. If people are uncomfortable with that, that concerns me. If people don't want a council person on, because what is being discussed that would make you uncomfortable to have a council person on there? Susanna just put her name up. She would be happy to do it. I'd be happy for her to go. I mean, I think that is really in her wheelhouse. So I think we need to be careful about what you'll consider if this is a city-sponsored group. We need to feel comfortable, and right now I'm not comfortable with that terminology.
And the reason I say that is it's not my committee, it's not the city's committee, it's a collaborative of stakeholders in the community. So historically, when we've tried to add partners, it's a group decision, it's not my decision. So that's where it's a little awkward. If this were a city commission, absolutely, it's your council's purview, and we can certainly morph it, change it into that, amend it, and create a city commission. That wasn't the intent of it, and that's not how it's worked in the past, but it certainly is an option. So when I say suggest, that's just what I'm saying. That would be up to the round table to consider expanding. I don't think they're opposed
But
to
you
it.
formed it, right? It was your idea.
I formed it, but I don't control it. So that's where it's a little awkward. But
So if you can't influence it, then maybe you shouldn't be part of it if the city's not going to be able, if it's for guiding the city, but the city can't be part of it, it just seems like there's a big disconnect.
much like a school board member wouldn't tell the roundtable what to do, right? It's not the school board's roundtable. It's not the chamber's roundtable. It's all of ours. That's why it's just a little different.
Okay.
But I don't think they're opposed to expanding membership. We've talked about it in the past, and they're willing to do that. So
And adding a council person?
that hasn't come up, but that could certainly be discussed. Sure.
Well, it came up when you first formed it. I
we
brought
haven't
it up.
talked about an open session, is what I'm saying. So this is the first time it's come
No,
up
we've
formally.
talked about it in open session, and I was shut down.
With a council representative?
Yes, we talked about it in open session. I remember bringing it up to you.
If there are no more clarifying questions, staff, at this time, then we will open public comments.
I received one written public comment on this item. A summary is shown on the screen. Full copies of these comments will be made available on the City Council agenda webpage. If you wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand using the Zoom feature, and I'll call upon your name if provided and unmute you to speak. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per person, and your microphone will be muted after the timer has expired. I see 2 hands raised. I will call on Rod, followed by Pete J. Rod, go ahead. Rod, we can't hear you. I will skip Rod for a minute and come back to him, and I will go to Pete J. Pete, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, council members. I'm speaking on behalf of the Downtown Brentwood Coalition, and I just wanted to say, as being on a part of this roundtable since the creation, I do give thanks to Tim. I think it was a great idea. I think there is some misinterpretation of what this has been. It is we're all volunteers for the nonprofits that have been out, so to speak. But as being, like Tim was saying, as part of it, we are open to your suggestions and welcome City Council to it, to see what it's about. And all we're trying to do from our end is just stay in the loop. So, we're active in our community as well. And we like to pass on information and ideas. It's been a very rough year through COVID with our businesses. And I want to say thank you for Tim for inviting us and getting us all together. Thank you.
I will go back to Rod.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you, Rod. Go ahead.
All right, thank you, Margaret. Sorry, I had to change microphones. So I don't have prepared statement. I just don't really understand what the city manager is specifically trying to get out of this group, how they're supposed to influence his decision-making, and if he wants a full view of how the city thinks. Where are the people that represent the 70% of Brentwoodians that voted against Measure L? Where are the people that represent the homeowners and the taxpayers? I appreciate there's businesses and there's service groups and there's churches, but where are the taxpayers? For that matter, where are the people that care about the land? Where is Greenbelt Alliance or the Sierra Club or Save Mount Diablo? There are a lot of us that don't necessarily, it just looks like when you have a lot of business people on a thing, business people tend to see a new house as another family that can consume their business, whereas a lot of us see another house and we see another family that we have to share the road with. We're not going to be able to 8-lane Sand Creek Road. We have the roads we have the traffic lights we have, and we want to be circumspect about what we're doing. And when I look at the list of people that's on there, I don't see that line of thought represented anywhere. it's extremely troubling to me that these meetings that are attended by a city official, a high-paid, top-ranking city official, are being done without any kind of public notification, no minutes, no invitation to drop by. No, we're going to be, at such and such a place, come and see us. Or, in the time of COVID, we're going to be in a Zoom room, come and join us. There's none of that. It's just these particular people, and fine people as far as I can tell, but still just a particular group of people who represent a very narrow point of view, who, the business people represent the businesses, Chamber of Commerce. You've got, one faith-based group in there. I'd like to see more of those. But I just want to see some participation from some people who are representative of the people who, the more than 80% of Brentwooders who commute every single day, who are not home during the week to go to a lunch with a city manager. And I think those of us that pay for this city, the people that pay for your salaries, the people that pay for all of this, I think we deserve a seat at that table. And I just don't see where we are in the whole process. And I would like to see an improvement on that, or else I'd like to see the city manager pull out of it. Thank you.
The next speaker is Owen Spyshock, followed by Marisol Valles. Owen, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Great. So just as on behalf of the Youth Commission, I think membership in the Brentwood Leadership Roundtable would be very valuable, because I feel like we represent local youth in Brentwood, and we, kind of in a way lead Brentwood's youth, because there is different organizations and clubs and stuff through schools. I think we provide a bigger impact. So just to bring up, I think it would be participation in the Leadership Roundtable would be good for the Brentwood Youth Commission. That's just all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Marisol Valles. Marisol, go ahead.
Hi, thanks, Margaret. I did raise my hand this time. I think I'm a little bit more confused than when it started, especially after this first speaker during this public comment spoke. The gentleman with the Downtown Coalition mentioned that Tim brought this to the group and that the group is independent. So I'd really like clarification, because now I'm even more confused. Is this, if city staff is using their time and money to be a part of this group, then I think there should be a little bit more input by city council and the residents on who is in this group. If it is completely an independent group and it's not a part of Tim, then maybe it's something that they just send a report to the city or to the council, but not using staff time or staff money on it. So I'm just even more confused now, especially after listening to the first public speaker. So I think this really needs to be clarified, and maybe an open invitation to everybody or something. But it just seems really confusing and very narrow-minded. So thank you.
I see no additional hands that are raised.
At this time, then, we will close public comment and move into council discussion.
I'd like to make a couple comments. I got to say, when we first heard about, during the interview process with the city manager, we heard about his Brentwood Leadership Roundtable in Manteca, and that was something he'd like to do here. And I got to say, I was excited about it, because it was getting out there, getting to know the community, collaborating with a group of just a variety of stakeholders. And I guess I'm looking even at the staff report. The city manager agreed to set up the leadership forum to encourage educational opportunities about City Hall and collaborate on community issues with other stakeholders as appropriate. So it sounds like it's more from that, because I thought it was kind of, okay, we're going to get into the community. We want to listen to what the community, the pulse of the community. We want to know what is is the problems in town? What are the good things in town? What things should you learn about? What should this group learn about? How can they assist to make this community an even better place? And I always envision 20 to 24 people in this group meeting maybe at a lunch hour, bag lunching it, and just discussing these types of things. You know, setting up an agenda for each one, and you know, at the end of the meeting, somebody says, "Hey, you know, I'd really like to hear about this topic at the next meeting." And so it was more of an informative, but a give and take between the city manager and these nonprofits, these worship groups, this business leaders in our community, activist leaders in our community, bringing them all together under one roof. And it doesn't seem like that's what this has been about. And I think that's where we've gotten a little frustrated. I do think that if we do move forward on this, I don't know how you put the genie back in the bottle, because you've already kind of changed it from what it initially was and you're no longer the one who is overseeing this. I always thought it was the city manager who's making this reach out to the community, not turning it over to somebody else to run. So that's a little frustrating in that respect. There are, I looked today in the Welcome magazine, the Brentwood Press Welcome magazine. There's a section on service clubs. There's 20 service clubs, almost 20 there, not including the Boy Scouts and the Cub Scout troops, which even getting some of them involved might be good, you know, to get a few of their leaders. And, you know, because you're looking at the youth perspective as well as a youth commissioner. And I got to tell you, if that's the youth commissioner who was at the PAL meeting yesterday, he's from Edna Hill, and this kid's a dynamo. So he'd be a good one to add in there. I didn't hear his name when it got called, so I apologize if that was you. The other thing was they also have all the different worship, the phone numbers and locations of all the different worship groups. And an email, as we all know, we get bombarded with emails. So what may have went to somebody's email may have just been in spam. It may have just been, you know, I'm not going to look at that, but a telephone call. Inviting people to these things might be the better way of doing it if you truly want to get the community to be involved in this and to really make it something substantial. I think that it has a good place. I think anytime we can bring our community together and find out from different perspectives what is good about our community or what needs to be improved is a good thing. Anyway, that's my piece.
Yeah. I don't feel it's something that we should get rid of. I think, and I agree with Councilmember Rary, is that maybe re-looking at it, figuring out some new ideas. I think it's always good to have groups together and discussing things that are going on in Brentwood. Obviously, you can't have every group. I mean, everybody, it's difficult. Some people just can't be part of it or they don't have time. But I just think maybe given the opportunity, I mean, at the end of the day, they got to choose if they got the time or not. So I think maybe just re-looking at it. I don't know how that could happen. I mean, maybe having a meeting, discussing it. But I think that, you know, maybe changing some of the language from leaders to maybe community members. Everybody has a different idea of what a leader is. I know I do. So maybe even changing that language to just community members and having different people participate. But I do think it's effective. I've been part of hundreds of them through many different communities, and some are more effective than others. Right, I think they're effective, not just who's running it, but the people that are involved, right? There's some people a lot more engaged than others. Some just want to be there because it looks good to have their name on there. Others want to be there because they just make a donation and don't really do anything. So it's really hard to evaluate that, right? But I think that it's important. I think that if you give people opportunity, they show up and hopefully they stay engaged and involved. That's great. But I think it is good. But I think it can be relooked at maybe. But I don't think it should be taken off as something that we don't encourage or do, right? Obviously. But yeah, that's my piece.
Any further comments? There seems to be pretty consistent support on the idea of it. It's a little ambiguous as far as an agenda item as to what was expected to happen tonight. But it does say to give direction to staff. And I'd love to hear what your input is and ideas are and thoughts about where we are right now in the conversation.
Yeah, I think the way I've used this roundtable in the past and tried to do it here, but COVID struck, delayed its implementation, and has really delayed the full outreach effort that I would love to have seen, is not to limit any stakeholders. It's to have as many diverse opinions as possible. It's always been a great tool for me to get a better sense of what's going on in the community where I can't be everywhere at once, and get different perspectives, a balanced perspective from multiple disciplines throughout the community. One of the challenges has been that I've tried to implement too is to try to reflect and educate that the city can't solve every community problem. Sometimes we're the first one to be looked at when so many nonprofits, the faith-based, the business community, others have tools, resources, and aren't managing them as effectively when we can all work together. And so that's the vision. So part of it is to say, don't point to the city to come up with every agenda item or to have every solution, but let's have the community stakeholders, leaders, however that's defined, come up with those solutions. Sometimes it may be appropriate to come back to the city council, hey, the roundtable came up with this idea, city council, what do you think? Other times it may say chamber, and we've had some side conversations where the chamber and John Muir Health partnered on something and they did it on their own. That was an outgrowth of just the opportunity of being together. So it may sound a little nebulous, not really clear because it's somewhat flexible to say where are partners coming up with things. Brentwood Strong worked with the Rotary on something, and there were a couple of other collaborative things that just came out of it because of these conversations that wouldn't have happened if we hadn't all kind of come together. Another goal was really to try to reduce duplicity in the community where we're the same 20 people are doing everything kind of thing. How can we partner together, get on the same page, pool resources, and try to solve these community-wide issues that aren't necessarily the city's purview, but the community's purview. Homeless was a topic we talked about one meeting. Well, city can't solve all the homeless issues. Well, maybe a nonprofit has a role. Maybe a different nonprofit can do something different. How do we work together better? That's the goal. That's the vision. So definitely open to your suggestions for other partners that the roundtable could consider, and don't want to discriminate. We want to invite anybody who wants to participate. I think one of the challenges has been that it was because of the COVID conditions, we were doing virtual meetings. We were meeting at noon when people were stuck at home, and that worked well. Now that people are starting to go back to lunches, the Zoom doesn't work well at noon, and we probably need to find a different time so we have more participation. Ideally, COVID will end, and we can meet in person for lunch, and we'd rotate locations, and we'd spread out where we're visiting, maybe learn more about the other nonprofits, what they're doing, et cetera. So that's the eventual goal. How the community participates, I don't know how it works, if they're doing lunches, that kind of thing. So there's some logistical stuff that we have to work through, but that's what I wanted to add. So if I'm open to any other suggestions specifically, and we can certainly reach out to them and invite them.
One of the things that, when I first heard this, the structure of the interagency meetings, the end result of that, where the different agencies send a representative that bring concise reports of exactly that kind of thing, things that we don't, as a city council and as a city, we don't know all the intricacies. There are things that are happening. And a round table to sit down and have a debriefing of important things that are going on or might be going on, or like you said, bring, we have so many fantastic nonprofits from every background and direction that are duplicating their efforts, that we could be much more efficient as a community, and each one of them could use their funding in a more viable and effective way without having to just reproduce what another nonprofit might be doing or same efforts. I think an opportunity to have what that would look like, but also potentially have a representative from council be there as well, like we do with the interagency. That might go a way to help all the concerns involved. And again, this is a phenomenal idea. Every community I've ever lived in, I've been from the nonprofit side. I've been a part of things like this, and it can be extremely effective. So I think that with a little adjustment, that this could be something that would be really outstanding and beneficial to all of the community and to the city.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I would have to agree. The interagency is a great example of how to do that. I am concerned, though, that it says, while it tells us for council direction to staff, you kind of told us that it's that it's not something that you have control over anymore. So how is it that we give direction when this group is no longer what it seemed like it was starting off to be, or at least what I perceived it to be in the beginning? So it does make it a little difficult. We can't give it direction because it's not yours anymore.
Yeah, I can clarify that a little bit. So while I created the framework for it and invited people to participate, and then once I had a subgroup, I said, okay, who else needs to be at the table? And we added a few additional partners at that point. I was initially chairing the meetings, but I tried to turn that chairship over again to really deflect that this isn't a city solving all of the community's problems. We can partner, we can give direction, we can support, but we provided some of the administrative support to get it going. I had an initial chair take over and then wasn't able to continue. So we're going to try to resume that once we expand the membership and say who else would like to run these meetings, so it's really clear this isn't a city solving every problem. But if the council wants to suggest some potential nonprofit partners that should be at the table, they're glad to invite them. No hesitation at all. And Roundtable can be a part of that.
So do you not have a role anymore? Like you're not spending city staff time on this at all anymore? You've handed that over?
It was very nominal time. It was sending out a draft agenda and calling for agenda items to be added to it, and usually there were 2 or 3 from some of the stakeholders. And I had my executive assistant set the webinar up, but that was the extent of it. So now I don't have the executive assistant participating in that anymore, and somebody else can set up those Zoom calls. That's the difference between where I was more involved and now I'm not as involved. But it's not a significant difference is what I'm saying. So I can certainly bring back some suggestions back to the group to invite others to participate.
I think that's kind of what the interagency did. I mean, each time the agenda came up, it was like, is there anything you want on the agenda? And we'd throw it on. And even if it didn't get on the agenda, we would say, oh, yeah, here's this update. But it would give us a framework of what to work off of. And I think the more you have in your group, you're going to get more people contributing so that, you don't have the same 6 people trying to come up with agenda items because, you know what, they gave it all last month.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, and I know that even the organization that I work for, at one time, Gus was hosting meetings with nonprofits in the city of Brentwood. To be able to support them and figure out how we could support nonprofits. So I know Gus initially took the lead, and at some point he pushed back and let the nonprofits start doing their own thing. So it sounds very similar what you were trying to do. I think it just wasn't maybe, we didn't get it or understand it, or maybe it wasn't put out there that way. But I'll be honest, I participated personally in a couple of those meetings when I had time, and I knew that Gus was leading that. But like I said again, he then transitioned into somebody else leading that discussions. So my thing is maybe I don't know how many members there is currently, but maybe you grab 5 of your strongest members and asked to meet and relook at this whole thing, right?
Sure.
Where it doesn't have to be a larger meeting. And see, I hate even saying it like that because I feel like I'm telling you, like, I know what the heck I'm talking about. But I think something like that, I mean,
I'm
hate to
hearing
say
the
it, but I've been-
consensus here that we need to relook
yeah,
at
well,
broadening
I
it some
just,
more.
like I said, I've done this about 1,000 times, but is it maybe just a group that you guys could relook at it and maybe come back with some different goals, a different mission, maybe a different name? I know leadership, Brentwood Roundtable, that sounds great, right? It's a roundtable, Brentwood Roundtable, very simple, very transparent, you know, there's no judge, well, I'm a leader, so I should be on there. Well,
Sure.
yeah, everybody has a different idea, like I said, what a leader is. But, and then talking about memberships, right? So my whole thing is maybe 5 of your strongest, including a council member, maybe being part of that, and just relook at it. And like I said, I don't even feel comfortable saying all that, just because obviously I think you guys are the experts as well, is that maybe that's just something you guys got to, you know, relook at it that way. But I do know that this has happened before, because I was part of that. But like I said, there is a time that you start and then push back.
So do you feel comfortable with that, like being just more transparent, sharing agendas, sharing minutes, including a council person?
It feels like it's making it more formal than it is, but I can certainly do that, yeah.
Okay.
I think the policy word is what's throwing everybody off. It feels like if you're talking policy, then why isn't that more transparent? And I can think of maybe 3 initiatives in the 10 years I've been doing this where there was some policy that rose back to the city council and they got involved and committed either funding to it or policy direction to it. So I don't want to mislead everybody. That's not really a policy think tank, if you will.
But I'd also like to think of it as you're kind of a conduit to everything going on for the council. But if I don't hear what you're hearing, then it doesn't help the council. I mean, so maybe you're not driving policy, but maybe we hear something from you. We're like, oh my gosh, we should have a policy
Sure.
about that. But right now, it's so not transparent that I don't think any of us can act on it right now. And what if we're getting feedback from other community members with the same things you're hearing? It just feels disconnected. So anything we could do to bring it together and move it forward and not seem like a secret society, which
Sure.
is what it's feeling like, would be great.
Sounds good. So what I can do is come back maybe in a couple meetings and reflect what the roundtable's come up with, the membership expansion, give you some more updates on what we're talking about, help bring a little more transparency to it.
And in the meantime, would you like us to email you some suggestions for additional members? Or would
Please.
you rather wait?
Please send it
Okay.
to us or now, or email's fine, yeah.
And you took notes on some of the other things that we
I
discussed?
jotted down some general categories of some industries that are missing, but
And I
yeah.
think it would be helpful
Thank you.
too, Tim, is that have people present on it and not you.
Mm-hmm.
I think having people that are actually in the roundtable maybe come and give a small report back, or not even a council member, so that it doesn't
Perfect.
look like the council member's driving the group, the city manager's driving the group, or it's just somebody, a resident or somebody from this group that's presenting back, so there's no conflict of interest or people have anything to say. It's more, it's coming from them themselves. So I think that maybe that could be helpful as well, where the people that are talking about it the most are the people that are involved in it,
Sure.
not ourselves.
Yeah, I was trying not to have the roundtable find out my secret agenda, and that's to shift city stuff back to the community. Now they know.
Well, if there's clear direction.
That's been very helpful, yeah.
If there's consensus from council to move forward with what the city manager has brought forward, do I have a motion on this?
Would you potentially say direction to the city manager to accept input today and come back, meet with the group and come back with a report about potential restructure of this group?
Yeah.
Sufficient?
As long as it doesn't feel like it's a city-run group, and that's my concern, but
So
as soon as we say
exactly
it
what I
is,
said,
then we have to solve everything, right?
but change it to the community-driven
Sure.
group.
And have somebody else present it maybe, and maybe that makes it cleaner, clearer. Yeah, perfect.
Do I just say that again?
Damien, you good?
Yeah. I'm just looking at the agenda description, which really talks about receive a report on the roundtable and provide suggestions for expanded membership. So that's what's before you tonight. Certainly, the city manager, I know, has indicated that he's heard sort of the council's feelings on this issue and what you're expecting to see. I'm not sure if a formal motion is required for this item based on this conversation. If the council wishes to make one, they can, but I'm not sure what that really looks like as the agenda description is written. Certainly if you have suggestions on who you'd like to see on it, which I think we've all heard some suggestions, you may have other ones in the future, but I don't know if a formal motion is needed at this time based on the discussion. If the council feels otherwise, please let me know, or if the city manager feels otherwise. But from what I'm hearing, you've had a discussion, you've given your input on this commission, or this body, and given some ideas.
Scratch that from the record.
Yes, right.
Well, and as was stated, that he's no longer kind of in control of this thing, so whatever we say doesn't seem like it's going to make a difference anyway. We've said what we would like to hope it, but that doesn't mean that it's going to go that way.
Well, as a member of the roundtable, I'll definitely take all these suggestions back and highly encourage it. I think that is the general consensus of everybody. We need to expand this and get more voices. So I think we're moving in the right direction, same direction.
All right.
Okay, that's great. Then I will ask, do we have to ask procedurally for the first to be removed?
I'm sorry, I don't understand what you mean, Mr. Mayor.
The motion?
Oh, I don't think there was a second to that motion, so I would say that the motion dies for lack of a second.
Thank you. Died for lack of a second. Now we will move on to item F1, new request for future agenda items. If you have a new agenda item request.
Well, I was going to request that we discuss Dolphin Park. We've all heard all of the commotion going on social media about Dolphin Park. I think it is going to be coming. I think we should actually table, I think they were considering having a community meeting, but I think that the community and the council need full education because there's a lot of misinformation out there. So instead of having people show up upset, I think we should give them all of the information that we have. So I think you and I had talked about the original DA, updated DA, so that people understand what that park was supposed to be and why it got changed, benchmarking off of other parks with similar features and why we, kind of what, and then, talking about solutions. Do we need the water feature? Do we not? Like those kinds of things.
Sure.
And I would like to, not sure how to phrase this. What I'm looking for is either agenda items or questions that were brought up in previous meetings to have a little more clear process for updates. And I say things like, for example, the climate action plan. That was an agenda item suggested several months ago. And I know that part of that is because of the funding and the strategic plan. But I'd like an update, for example, on that one. Where are we? What are we thinking would be a good, easy way to start that implementation, that kind of thing? The adults with disabilities, parks and rec programming. I'm looking for not specifics to those necessarily, more like how do we follow up on those processes? Some of these things obviously are going to take longer than others, but at this point, some of them are just kind of out there floating and we're not really sure where they are in having some kind of staff follow-up or where they're going to end up being in the agenda again, or if they're dying a slow death. So looking for some process there.
Yeah, we don't want to nail property and 10 years goes by, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Those are two examples. I had more, but my notes on that are in the other room. So, but this is, again, it's a general question about process here, about how do we make sure that these things don't die, and how do we communicate with the public where we are in processes. Is that enough direction?
If I may, this part of the agenda is just putting items on for future agenda. There will be an opportunity to discuss it in detail with all your colleagues at the next meeting. So I think that is enough. If the city manager has any.
I was just trying to think how to get you an answer quicker than waiting 2 more agendas to get that on an agenda. Well, but I can certainly give you a memo offline, and then you can share that with your constituents as needed.
Okay.
But you're right. We need to give more regular updates to the community on these things that are talked about, and then they don't see anything for months, but it's being worked on behind the scenes.
Yeah. So then can I, in that case, would I set a separate agenda item for updates on those 2 particular items? The first one was about process.
I think for those two other items, I believe the city manager, if I heard him correctly, indicated he'll provide an update, an off-agenda update to the council on where they are, or where staff is with those items. So
I mean, I get that, but I kind of want the public to understand too that there's progress being made, and how do we do that?
Like the climate action plan, we just got bids back. It'll be on an agenda to award a contract in the next meeting or two. So that one's coming. So an agenda item to talk about when it's coming doesn't make sense, but we'll certainly have action on that very soon.
Okay.
And then the adult disability, we can get you just an email update on where that's at, and if there's any contractual obligations that need to come back to the council, when that anticipated timing is.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no more future agenda item requests, we will move on to item F2.1. Councilmember Mendoza explained her request. Councilmember Mendoza.
This came about after the neighborhood night out that we did. I was at Trilogy, and there was a table from Moms Demand Action, and they approached me because I think they had talked to Vice Mayor Rodriguez, and also you, Mayor. I'm not sure if they talked to anyone else, but they were under the impression that we were going to bring this up and bring it to discussion. So my request was that I know sometimes we can't do things. My understanding is we already have some kind of laws in place that answer a lot of these questions. So I just kind of want a simple matrix. What is the law today? What is it that Moms Demand Action want? Do we fall short, or do we fall so close enough that it's okay and we don't need additional ordinances in our city? So I don't even know if that needs to come back to council, but maybe just a memo comparing and contrasting all of those things would be great. Something that we can share out with the members of Moms Demand Action and see how they feel about that too.
So at this time, we will open public comments. Margaret?
I received 0 written public comments on this item. If you wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand using the Zoom feature, and I'll call upon your name if provided and unmute you to speak. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per person, and your microphone will be muted after the timer has expired. And I have no hands raised.
Okay, at this time, we will close public comment, move into council discussion.
Go ahead.
Do you want to go first? That's fine.
No, go ahead.
I would like to see a little bit more in depth on this report. I would like to see, like, for example, what other cities are doing with their ordinances. I know that Moms Demanding Action have done a lot of work throughout the Bay Area, potentially further than that, to really bring attention to gun control. And so I'm sure there are some policies that have already been instituted that are really strong, that meet all of the benchmarks that are supposed to be met, that are satisfactory to the police department and the community. And I think maybe potentially add a report by Chief Hansen to understand where are we as far as some of these things that maybe they don't work for us because, they don't align with what we do as a city. They go against a state regulation, whatever it is, a little bit more in depth.
Yeah. I mean, I also agree with that. I did meet with Moms Demand Action, and I think I've had different discussions with different staff in regards to it a while back. And I think there was a lot of similarities to what they're asking and to what's in law. But I think, like Councilmember Mendoza mentioned, that how close, right? And is there more that we can do, right? I think there's never enough, but if it's already there, there's no reason to add anything else. But if there's more that we can add, I totally agree with Councilmember Mendoza. My understanding is that it's almost similar to what's already on there, but I also would like to learn and see if that's true. Well, not that it's true, because I believe the staff that talked to me, but how close is that? And is there still more that we could implement or anything? So, yeah, I would love to. I agree with that.
Is it appropriate to invite Moms Demand Action to speak?
Yeah, I think the way Councilmember Mendoza laid it out is, what does the penal code say? What does this other proposed ordinance say? What are the differences? Where would this add value into the community? And can we enforce it? I think it makes more sense to me to bring it back as an agenda item and then show you the differences and what it could look like. I know the chief's ready to assign a lieutenant to start working on it, gathering information, and we could come back in first meeting in October, possibly show you those differences and make a recommendation.
And I think one thing I want to make clear is that Second Amendment, totally protected, because I know some people are probably going to be like, oh, my guns. I totally believe in Second Amendment. That is not what this is about, if anyone hears this. It's just about protecting our residents, and especially children. And there's been a lot of incidents lately, so it's just making sure we're keeping everyone as safe as possible while still enjoying having your guns and doing what you do.
Yep.
I did also meet with moms, demand action regarding this, and the concern specifically that they talked to me about was safe storage of guns. And so I firmly believe that anyone that is a gun owner would support safe storage of guns. I can't, well, I'm going to stop there, but so do I have a motion?
Well, before we get on to that, and I agree with everybody, but, you know, as a reporter, I actually, the day after a child was shot in a home, I was told by my editor to go to that house, knock on the door, and speak to the people there. So it's devastating to the individuals where somebody is shot in the home, and I think safe storage. I mean, before we even got a gun in our house, I bought my husband locked gun storage box. So it is something that, you know, kids get into things. I mean, I know me as a kid, I was in my parents' closet all the time looking at the different things in there. And so kids are curious. And teenagers too, you know, they see it. And if you're not taught the safety of guns, I mean, it is something that they want to see it, they want to touch it, they want to feel it. So I think this is important.
Okay, do we have a motion to move this item?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion that staff spend time comparing and contrasting what the Moms Demand Action guidelines are versus what we have as a city, and look for opportunities for improving what we have if necessary.
I second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? It is unanimous. Okay, normally at this time we would need a motion for adjournment, but now at this time I need a motion to adjourn to closed session.
So moved.
We have a first and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone in the community and all our public speakers. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I believe you might have the adjournment.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that reminder. At this time, I am going to request that we adjourn tonight's meeting in honor of one of our longtime employees, Gail Leech. Gail has been with the city for over 19 years. She started in January of 2002 as an administrative secretary in the finance department. She was quickly promoted to management analyst and worked in that capacity for both the finance department and the city manager's office. In 2020, she was promoted to senior analyst in the economic development division. And some of Gail's acclaimed projects are the Civic Center, including City Hall, where we're meeting tonight, the Community Center, the parking structure here in downtown, Brentwood Library, the big red chair out in the park, and the City Park gazebo. Gail was born and raised in Chicago, and she was an avid Cubs fan. She was adventurous, loved all things outdoors, and she excelled at archery. She is truly missed and will be remembered forever. And I ask that we could keep her family in our thoughts and prayers as well, and ask with the permission of council that we adjourn tonight in honor and in memory of Gail Leech. So if I could get a motion to adjourn to closed session.
So moved.
Second.
First and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.